There's stuff on my mind that I forgot to mention before. First of all, I forgot to mention about the fact that there's wider gang stalking than just what's going on around here. I mean, I've had to put up with racist language from outside. Like I said before, everything about me is weaponized. So, of course, I'm going to have perps engaging in street theatre, using the same language these people have used just to trigger me all over again, and to give racists a chance and sexist people a chance and people who hate fat people a chance to just like engage in their worst impulses. The thing about that is that it would be, I'm sorry, it doesn't make a difference to me whether it has an effect on everybody else or not. But the truth of the matter is that it does have an effect on everyone else too. Because you're not going to get people admitting it right away. But there are people who agree with these points of view, and there are people who are actively listening to these gang stalkers doing their street theatre. Why do you think racism is on the rise in the first place? Why do you think abusiveness is on the rise in the first place? It's because this behavioral social control put this in motion. Because the thing is, from being abused out on the street and nobody's doing anything about it, that means either they don't see it as a big deal or they locally agree with it. So because these gang stalkers are doing the street theatre in order to abuse you, somewhere along the line somebody else is going to agree with that person. It's like 100 monkey effects. Somewhere along the line it's going to lead to something bigger, because it always does. So for me, This is so much bigger than this fact. It's so much bigger than just some stupid neighborhood feud. And the people who feud with me don't seem to get it. They don't seem to fucking get it. The people who are hired for this job, they still don't fucking get it. The people who try to make me feel bad about myself or who are hired to do so, they don't fucking get it, and they will never fucking get it. They are literally contributing to making the world worse. Now, with me threatening to kick somebody's ass, now that I've put it in that context, now that I've kind of really rethought about everything, me threatening to kick somebody's ass, I feel like that's long overdue. You can't go around encouraging fucking... It's not even just racism, because that's... How do I put this? That's at the crux of most people's dislike of me, but it's not what they're going to use primarily, if that makes sense. They're not going to resort to saying racist things right away. They'll just say, oh, I'm scared, or, I don't know, I don't like living with immigrants. Immigrants is shorthand for black and brown people. So they're never going to say they're racist right away, because they're waiting for the environment to be right before they say anything. Again, human nature. But, I don't understand what, gang stalkers think this is. Like, what do you think this is? And the thing is, it's one thing if you don't care, but then don't not care and then delude yourself about what's going on then. Because if you don't care about what you're doing, that means you know what you're doing. And if you don't care about the consequences of your actions, that means you know the consequences of your actions deep down. So you got to pick one. It's either you don't know what's going on or you don't care what's going on. I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. It's going to lead to the same thing. It's going to lead to the same thing. Now I'm looking back at the situation, threatening to kick somebody's ass. I'm thinking, now I'm starting to realize how minuscule my actions have been in comparison to what's been done to me repeatedly. Once again, I'm brought back here. once again I'm brought back here. Once again I'm reminded, hey, the only reason you're doing this and the only reason why you're not walking out the door right fucking now is because it puts you in a difficult position. It's not so that it's not to preserve anyone else. It's certainly not to preserve people who are going to actively make the world worse, regardless of how they got to that decision. Now I'm brought back to understanding this is about protecting me. I'm what's important. And then once again, this is why I accept that I have a responsibility in how I behave. It's easy for me to accept considering everything that's been happening to me. And like I said before, that family ain't firing nothing. They ain't firing no fucking weapons. Okay? They're not firing any electronic rays. I still don't know who's fucking doing it. All I know is that it usually comes from the outside, the front of the building. So if I was in my bedroom right now, it would be worse than if I was in here. Because it always comes from outside. It always comes from north facing, you know. It always comes from north facing because the thing is, where my bedroom is, there's less buildings in the way. Back here, there's all kinds of shit in the way. So even though they can attack me from here, I can be, not the neighbours, but I can be electronically attacked from here because there's more, you know, there's more shit in the way, sure, but, you know, I can still be attacked. But at the same time, the attacks are not as ferocious out here because there's more shit in the way. It's not the same from out there. It's not the same from out there. When you're dealing with electronic frequencies and you're dealing with laser technology, you're dealing with, you know, directed energy weaponry and acoustic weaponry. When you're dealing with that stuff, right, the less things that are between you and the weapon is, you know, is the more them weapons are going to hit. That's how it works. So, for me, you know, me being in here is like, again, it just makes, you know, really thinking about my actions. It just makes it easier for me to accept my actions because, hold on a second, I'm realizing now exactly how bad the consequences are for me when other people are behaving like that. And when it gets that bad, you might as well kick some ass. Or at least threaten to. I just wasn't thinking. Like, when you're angry and when you're brought to a certain level where you're emotional, it's like you do things instinctively, but you don't think about why you're doing them. You don't think about why you're doing them. On Sunday, I think I was attacked with psychotronic weaponry. I think that there were certain frequencies being fired that were making me more anxious than I should have been. And I think that's partially why I lost my temper the way I did. It definitely wasn't because of anything the kids were doing, because they'd still been doing the same thing. Like, they did the same thing literally a day later, and I did not give one fuck what they did. I literally didn't care. I just fucking ignored them because I don't care what they say. I don't care what they think they've won. I don't give a shit. Because at the end of the day, won what? At the end of the day, a targeted individual is going to be hit with psychotronic weaponry in order to boost perp morale. Huh. A TI is going to be hit with psychotropic weaponry, with weapons of anxiety, with weapons of depression, not weapons, frequencies. Because there are certain frequencies in your head that can trigger anxiety. I can't remember which one it is. I think the gamma ones induce anxiety because of the sheer speed of the frequencies. I think It might be either beta, it might be beta or delta that reinforces depression. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm going to look that up. But there are certain frequency bands. There are 5 main frequency bands of each brainwave that elicits a particular emotion. And those can be weaponized to cause anxiety, depression, even paranoia. And the thing is, if I'm being too calm in accepting what people are doing to me, then what ends up happening is that the psychotropic weapons are fired on more on the TI, so that I can start breaking down and crying, so that I can start getting angry, so that I can start throwing tantrums, so that the perps feel more successful about what they're doing. Again, I've been here before. Nothing new. Nothing new. This has been all my life, and I've known about it for the last 13 years at least. There's nothing new. This is nothing new. When there are directed energy weapons that can attack your bones, like we saw that back in late May, June. Yeah, like putting it in context like that. There are a lot of terrible people around me. There are a lot of terrible people. I can't even lie. Like, there are so many terrible people. So many. Oh my God. Awful people. Awful people. And again, the way it works is that as a TI, when you land somewhere, the point is that whichever neighbor is hired as a perp, they perform gaslighting and street theater on you so that you react. And the way it works is that once that happens, everybody treats you as if you are the common denominator in everything going wrong, when really this was premeditated. So there's that, and there's also the fact that even after I leave here, whoever moves in here next is officially a TI. It would have been the same with the hostel, only that closed down. Whoever moves into this flat right here is a TI. They're going to have weapons fired on them. They're probably going to be harassed too. It's going to be the same thing all over again. And the point is to demonize the TI indirectly. So instead of just saying, oh, the TI is this, that, and the third, because rumors for rumors' sake is never going to work, right? Because somebody's going to, pull you up on your shit and say, well, no, that's not the case. So the reason why the electronic weapons are important and the harassment is important, the premeditated torture and harassment are important, the reason why these things are important is so that you can react and give people proof that you're argumentative. Luckily for me, I am. And when people try shit like that with me, I'm ready. I stay ready. Because the whole point of being abused all your life is that you know exactly where the narcissistic abuse tactics are, and you can point them out. But yeah, it's premeditated. Everywhere I go, the shit is premeditated. So that they can turn around and say I'm bringing drama. That's why I didn't want to live nowhere. Try me out in the street. Let somebody, all the stuff that happens to homeless people, I wish they would try that with me. I wish they would. I wish they would. And it's not even about a matter of being angry. It's a matter of survival. Let them try the shit with me. Let them try it with me. I swear. Hell no. Hell no. Like I said, if I'm going to end up in the streets, I'm going to make sure I run the streets. Sure, listen. Why do you think they moved me from place to place? It wasn't because I was causing trouble. It wasn't because I was any more argumentative than anyone else. I was moved because I was gaining too much control over a situation, because that's what gang stalking does. So yeah, these are terrible people. That's why I can't face them. I can't face them because they're terrible. It's not because, you know, when I wasn't thinking clearly, I was thinking, I don't want people to think badly of me. I don't want people to think badly of me. But now I realize, who am I talking about? I'm talking about people who are fucking terrible. And the only reason why I care about what people say is that I know at least the wider consequences. Even when you're well within your rights to do certain things, there are wider consequences to everything. But because I'm surrounded by people who are too stupid to think of that, I've got to do the thinking for everybody. And in the meantime, I'm talking to UTIs, and these perps want to try to diminish everything that I say because they know I'm right. It's one of those things where, you know, the thing that drove, invariably, the thing that drove perps the most crazy was when I wouldn't react to their shit. And this is especially what pisses them off, when I'm right. Because the thing is, what the perps would do is they'd see my internet rants, they get me to react to the point where I make internet rants, right? And then what they would do is they would show their friends and show people, oh, this is what they've been saying about me. This is what they've been doing to me. This is what they've been there. And then these people hear what I say, and then they turn around and say, yeah, but she's right though. One of my perps actually lost friends because in the end they realized I was telling the truth. What's there to remember? It's the fucking truth. So they go around showing my social media to make me look bad, to make me look like a lunatic. But the thing is, everything that I'm saying is backed up by literally somebody who's been in British military intelligence for like 40 fucking years before he quit. Talking all this stuff about how electromagnetic frequencies are being used to attack people and cause cancers and all the rest of it. Did you really think it was just the residual chemicals of Teflon? No, there was a wider campaign in the first place. A global campaign in the first place to depopulate, but they had to depopulate in a way that made it look like it was a human fault rather than anything social or systemic. They had to make it look like that. And the only way they're going to make it look like that is if human beings get sick, not if we fight each other, if we get sick. It's like, it's almost like killing someone over time by giving them a fatty meal every day. It's like, it's weird. It's like, imagine you have every intention of killing a person, but instead of poisoning them or instead of poisoning them or, stabbing them or anything like that, instead you go to any foods that are unhealthy, you prepare that for them, you make it as delicious as possible, and then on top of that, you chip away at a person's confidence over time, and you make little microaggressions here and there towards the person that you're with, and then you eventually break them down, you wear down their nerves. Over time, they have to take more pills in order to, try to reverse or sidestep the damage that's been caused by years of bad food, and then that creates side effects which makes the person even sicker. It's that type of shit. So you're still killing the person because you intended to do that, but you're making it look like it's a human fault by doing it through causing illness. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's how this is done. When people get sick, oh, it's just sickness. Like, it's just sickness. You know, it happens. It happens. It's just random. Like, it happens. Come on now. It just happens. People get sick. No, people don't just get sick, man. They don't just get sick like that. Not without help. But that's what this is like. That's what gang stalking is like. Gang stalking does unnatural things to you. And then when you have a natural reaction, you're demonized as an unnatural person, either through lies or through an exaggeration of your behavior. And that isolates you so that you don't get the help that you're supposed to get. And it has a knock-on effect. You're seeing this paranoid schizophrenic, you're going to be given pills that are dopamine blockers, which fucks with your hormones, puts on weight. And that's on top of the non-ionized radiation that you have to deal with, which dehydrates your body. It dehydrates your body. That's where the strokes and the heart attack and the diabetes, that's where all of that comes from. Because your body is being dehydrated by the non-ionized radiation of the acoustic weaponry and the directed energy weaponry. On top of the fact that there are specific directed energy weapons created that destroy a person's bone marrow. And that will continue to hurt you no matter how many drugs you take. There are electronic weapons that attack your bone marrow. There are electronic weapons that attack your nerves. In fact, the acoustic weaponry really does erode your nerves over time. As does the psychological harassment. It erodes your nerves over time. And then when you get sick, people want to turn around and say, well, you were very sick. You were very sick. I could easily use my relatives as an example. There are two people closest to me that have asthma and sickle cell respectively. And now that they're as sick as they are, everybody's blaming the fact that, oh, they were sick in the first place. Like, everybody's blaming their sickness in the first place. But it took doctors systemically refusing to treat them for years. Refusing to treat them properly. It took a lifetime of drugs because people refused to treat them properly. It took constant abuse, which both of them took. It took constant abuse. And in some cases, it took an unhealthy diet as a coping mechanism. In one of my relatives' cases, they took multiple overdoses throughout their lives. Now we're dealing with a situation where one of my relatives, where both of my relatives are basically living like people who are in their hundreds. One of my relatives can barely move. Or another of my relatives can barely talk, let alone move. And that's as a result of systemic harassment and torture and abuse. Don't tell me that this shit doesn't mean nothing. I've seen it in action. You're not fooling me with the shit. You're not fooling me with that shit. Don't tell me it doesn't matter. And there are black people have shorter lifespans. Black and brown people have shorter lifespans than white people overall. You think that's by accident? Do you really think that's by accident? And the only reason why women have longer lifespans than men is because we don't do stupid shit most of the time. It all adds up, and it's deliberate. Now, in my case, because I'm a TI, I've got electronic weapons to contend with. I've got psychological harassment to contend with. I've got smear campaigns to contend with. I've got I've got the police being fucking arrogant assholes to contend with, using guidelines that do not apply to the real world at fucking all. I've got mental health being condescending, using rules that don't apply to the real world at fucking all. And people want to turn around and say my rants are, they're just dumb rants. Dumb rants where? If they were dumb, you wouldn't be carrying on the way you were. About dumb rants. Maybe if some people would have listened to dumb rants, there wouldn't be so many people being murdered right now. Huh? Maybe. I wasn't thinking. I just wasn't thinking. I was just so upset and hurt. I wasn't thinking. But these people around here are fucking terrible people. And I can try to rationalize that inside my mind by saying, you know what, people are human. Human beings do terrible things under the wrong circumstances. And it's true. But even knowing what I know about human nature and being older and, being old enough to understand nuance and being old enough to understand that just because everybody else is fucking terrible, it doesn't automatically make me a fucking hero. Even knowing all of that, I have to come back to the same conclusion. Look at the wider effects of their actions. They're terrible people. They're terrible people. They're terrible people. It's not just a case of me having my feelings hurt. And that's a narcissist way of looking at it. You're too soft, you're too sensitive. Like, you know what? I love a good joke. I love a good roast as much as any other person. There are times where I've been roasted the hell out of and I thought it was funny. Because it's like, there have been times where I've been roasted the hell out of and I legitimately thought it was funny because there was warmth behind it. But when there's no warmth behind it and it's just pure malice, pure impotent rage because you can't get your fucking shit in order, that's not funny. That's not funny. Fucking hell, they're terrible. That's why I don't want to see them. They're awful people. That's really all the revenge I need, honestly. They're terrible people and they have to live with that. And they have to live with the wider consequences of their actions and watch the world spiral downward because of their behavior. I don't have to do that. Yeah, that's why I haven't been out. Surrounded by terrible people. Terrible, awful, horrible people. And the fact that it's human nature for people to behave this way, that only makes it worse. That only makes it worse. Boy. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get myself together. I might even go out and face those terrible people. But yeah, they are terrible, I can't lie. I love you, my fellow TIs. Bye-bye. Well, yeah. Yeah, these people are terrible to the point where they cause people's deaths and they don't care because they've got more than one person backing them up. Staying strong in the midst of that is, yeah. I love you guys so much, my fellow TIs. I want to tell you to stay strong, but fuck it, we all know you're going to. Bye.